I was elected to council. I ran for council in the early 2000s, like 2000, 2001, for the Mission District. And then in 2003, I ran again against Denny Orr. Kevin Howlett had been in the seat, but he resigned to be the director of tribal health. So Denny Orr was elected in a special election, and then I was running in the regular election for our lead, was elected. And at the time, I was the youngest member to council at that particular council I served on. 2 years later, I was elected chairman. My 4 years as chairman, the first year we were battling the bison, first year we were battling Class 3 gaming compact with the state, and that ended up being a real significant battle with Governor Schweitzer. Pretty ugly battle with the governor over Class 3 gaming. Then the next battle, the next year, that battle ended the end of November. Within a week, we were in a battle over the bison range, over annual funding agreement and management of the bison range. So one battle ended, the next one picked up, and then that one went on for the whole next year. And then my last 2 years, I ended up with some internal battles in council and in administration that ultimately led to my demise as chairman. There was enough council members that voted me out as chairman, and I was ousted by another cousin, ousted me out of the chairmanship, and I spent 2 years as a backbencher, which is a parliamentary term. So I've spent a number of years on council, very stressful time, at times a very lonely time. Did I do everything right? Probably not. Did I please everybody? Nope. Did I make everybody happy? No way in shape or form. But I can tell you, when we took on the governor of the state of Montana, then we had that first quarterly meeting. Everybody in that room stood up and gave the council a standing ovation for fighting for the tribes and standing up to who was supposed to be our friend. When I was chairman, I felt very strongly that we were not to be a doormat for anybody. I don't care who it was. You are not going to be. I felt like, I could see my Grandpa Fred and Grandpa Matthew Steele, Swede Steele, and Uncle Bill and Doogie primarily, and all of our World War II vets and our veterans. They went. Joe Ignace, my neighbor down here in Arlie, went to France. They didn't go to those places for our people and our leadership to just be stepped on by the governor or anyone else. The Class 3 gaming negotiations, we knew it was coming up. I got to be chairman, started serving January of 2004. And we immediately had a meeting together of our main negotiation staff and council members. The whole council was part of the negotiation team. I was the lead. I just took over leadership of it. But the negotiation started out with two prongs. We wanted to maximize what the tribes could get out of Class 3. We couldn't negotiate the types of machines or types of gaming we had to, because of IGRA, Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, we could only negotiate with the state of Montana what was legal in state law. So we couldn't change the type, but we could negotiate payout, number of machines, and the wager. And we take jurisdiction over everything. State operators, tribal operators come under our jurisdiction, They will get their licenses from us, and then it'll be like that. So we would still have the town pump and all that, but they would come through us, through our commission. So that was our plan A, was to maximize negotiations with the state of Montana over Class 3. The next was to establish a Class 2 casino, which is bingo based. And Class 2, we don't have to go through the state. We just go straight to the feds. But at that time, we were fighting with John McCain and Phil Hogan, the chairman of the National Indian Gaming Commission. They were trying to take Class 2 and pull the meat out of it for it to be profitable for tribes. So we had those two things going on in the Class 3 battle. So we started negotiations with the state. The governor, when he was running for office, he said, if you ever need to talk to me, I will come here. I will sit with you here in Pablo and talk to you across the table, when he was campaigning. Well, once we started the Class 3 negotiations, he didn't show up. He sent, Councilman Sassy Runnicrane from Blackfeet put it a good way. He said, you know what? We have come here to talk to the governor. We didn't come here to talk to the janitor and the yards keeper and the groundskeeper. We came here to talk to the governor. Where is he? Well, I speak for the governor, his staff would say. No, that's not what he said when he campaigned. He would be here. Where is he? We never did see the governor during that whole negotiation process from February to November. Ultimately, I told council I'd like to try to set a meeting with Schweitzer and Governor Schweitzer in Missoula. So we did. We set a date and everything, and then the day before it got canceled. We didn't know why. Governor canceled it. Boom. The compact was ending in November. This was early November. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to a Tribal Leaders Council meeting in Helena, and I was the chair. Either I was the chair or the vice chair of Montana Wyoming Tribal Leaders at that time. Carl Venn was the chair, and so I told Rob McDonald was pretty much my spokesperson or PR guy at the time. He said, Rob, could you get hold of the governor's office and let him know I'm going to be in Helena, that we could talk? And so I'm in the governor's office, me and the governor, and there's this little rickety table. There's a staff person in there. And the governor gets up from the table and he walks and he's talking to the window with his back to me. And he says to the window, you have a lobbyist and his name is Mark Baker and he works for Conrad Burns. And inside of me, I just thought I could just feel that foot trying to be put on, not me, James Steele Jr. I'm not there as me, I'm there as the chairman representing all of us. I didn't take it personal. I took it back to that story of our veterans. They went over to fight for us to be protected. They did not fight for me to be in that room and just cow down to the governor and let him put his foot on all of us collectively. And I said, with all due respect, Governor, it's none of your business who the Confederated Salish Kootenai Tribes works with. But let me explain to you why we had a lobbyist working for, a Republican lobbyist working with Conrad Burns. It was that election year where Conrad had lost. He had lost. This was 2 weeks after that. John Tester was our next senator, but the governor was calling me out over that. And I said, you know what? Let me tell you why we have a lobbyist. And let me tell you why we had to work with Conrad Burns. Conrad Burns was chairman of the Interior Appropriations Subcommittee that handles Indian appropriations. What can you do for us, Governor, on the federal appropriations? That's right, nothing, because you are just the governor of the state of Montana. And I said, you really need to get off of this Republican kick, because if I remember right, go down the hallway here in the Capitol and take a hard left at the end is your lieutenant governor's office, and who, if I remember right, is a Republican. And he's still looking out the window, and he said, well, if you don't sign this Class 3 compact, I will go to the reservation and tell all the people there that this compact failed because you guys got greedy. I will go to the newspapers, I will go to the... And he said, and if you don't sign this Class 3 gaming compact, your re-election is in question. I said, you know what, Mr. Governor? There are 8,000 Salish Kootenai Pend Oreille people that'll answer that for me, not you. Not you. And I left there and I was mad. Went back down to the tribal leaders meeting and I was steamed and told them all that happened. And the compact, quit. But we got back and I asked the council, I said, why don't we just approve what we got, send it over to them? So we did. We approved it and sent it over. And of course, he didn't sign it. So our Class 3 compact ended, which as soon as that compact ended, then federal law is real clear. It becomes a Johnson Act violation to have Class 3 machines on the reservation. So then the federal law kicks in. State tribal Class 3 machines are immediately illegal. So then the federal government can come swoop in and take all the Class 3 machines off the res, and immediately, it caused a lot of turmoil on the res for all of those non-Indian operators were immediately out of business, and I caught a lot of hell for that. Yeah, under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, there are 3 classes of gaming. Class 1 is traditional gaming, like hand game, stick game, and also 21, blackjack, but 21. And we were able to establish that because in historical photos and such, you can see where they were playing the game of 21. So that's also considered. So that's Class 1. That's strictly regulated by the tribe. Class 2 is bingo based, which in the old days was, the old dauber and such. But technology had gotten to a place where you go in, you'll see a Class 2 machine has a little bingo card down in the corner of it or down on the screen here, and it's punching out bingo patterns. And the fancy part of it looks like a regular Class 3, but the inner workings is based on bingo. Class 3 is, lottery, your roulette, Keno, poker, general poker, not Texas Hold'em poker. That's more Class 2. But your Las Vegas style casinos is Class 3. Class 2 was our other option, Plan B, and so we started down that. We had the 2 going on at the same time. We're fighting with negotiating with the state over Class 3. And then on the other side, we're developing Class 2. But we were battling John McCain and Chairman Phil Hogan of the National Indian Gaming Commission. And so we were going to these national meetings opposing NIGC. And so ultimately, we ended up suing the NIGC, Flathead, Santa Rosa, Tachi, and one other California tribe. And we were suing the NIGC just to delay them because we wanted to get Evro established, get some casino machines on the ground and up at the resort. And if they took the guts, if they took the, not the guts, but the meat of the ability to be profitable in Class 2 out, we wanted to have a takings claim against the federal government. And we also wanted to have an option if we weren't successful with the state. Ultimately, we went Class 2. The other thing is that we were unique in the country for Class 3 because we had all these non-Indian operators on the reservation. We were unique in that regard and strange. No other Indian tribe was doing that. And so by Class 3 ending, it stopped all of that. And It was definitely tough. It got real heated, but at the end of it, I think, there's good and bad to gambling, of course. Was it meant to be an ultimate moneymaker for the tribes? No, it never was visioned to be that. But there was a jurisdictional component. We wanted to have the tribes have 100% jurisdiction over the gaming on the reservation. That was accomplished. Class 3, the thing that we offered was all the existing operators could stay. Our individual tribal operators could stay. They just came under tribal jurisdiction. A lot of people didn't read that. They didn't know that or didn't see it. But we really didn't negotiate anything to change much other than we determined the number of machines, we determined the payout, and we determined the wager. Those are the three things that we asked. Anytime we went, they would say this does not form the basis of negotiation, and they'd push our proposal back to us. And then we would change something and bring it back to them. And it was us negotiating amongst ourselves, and the state wasn't doing anything. And the other thing, the state said, well, if we give you this, then the Crows are going to want this, and Blackfeet are going to want this. And said, no, we're here negotiating for us. We're not here negotiating for these other tribes. So the state had this real clamped down way of negotiating. They weren't going to give us anything different than what they were giving the other tribes. So it was a very cookie cutter approach, and some tribes went with that, and we chose to do something different. So ultimately, that's why we are Class 2 now and not Class 3. But that was my first battle. So anyway, that's that.